Are you ready to get real? Welcome to real estate, the world's loneliest career, where you're always out of balance, unfulfilled, the role models are fake, the numbers unattainable, and you're just supposed to be and do it all. Join self-made millionaire real estate agents, wives, moms, and business owners as we level up, learn from special guests, and elevate and disrupt an entire industry through real education our way.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We've got some interesting stuff that we were just talking about that is highly public, I guess I would say, in our industry right now with this whole tax or subsidization of the interest rates, depending on people's different credit scores. And I don't know about you, Angela, but I've been seeing nonstop posts about this from real estate agents all week.
Yep.
And
Who knows what it really means?
I don't know, because I'm having a difficult time understanding what it means as well. Because I've seen like multiple, like very legitimate, as legitimate as you can get, news sources reporting on it, and they're really like reporting on it in pretty different ways. I've heard a lot of people say this isn't something that actually will affect anybody. I've heard a lot of people say it will. So, we are definitely confused about it ourselves and looking into it and hoping that if there's a lender out there that's listening that maybe wants to talk more about it, we can talk more about it today or definitely next week for you guys. But I would say that that's the big buzz this week in the industry.
For sure. And I would be really careful with what you're putting out there, because a lot of what I'm seeing is leaning really political. And no one really knows, in my opinion, at least what I've seen, nobody can really articulate what is going on with it properly. But it seems to always end up back at political ground zero. And I feel like that's not what you really want to do right now, especially if you don't really understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think I don't know. There's some agents that will political out there in their, public profiles or socials. And I'm never a huge fan of that, but there's some that are like violently political, and that's like the ones that I see speaking out about things. But I don't know that this is a great time to be political about anything in the world that we're living in right now, period.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, based on my limited knowledge of it, obviously I haven't posted anything about it because I don't fully understand it, so I'm not going to. What my understanding is people with higher credit scores are almost subsidizing a rate or a cost of some kind for people with lower credit scores to be able to qualify or get a lower rate. So I believe lender will tell us, but.
Yeah, I also believe that to be, I think, where I'm struggling to, make sense of it is if it's like, when they say 1%, does that mean that they're going to pay a 1% higher rate? Does that mean 1% higher in costs? Does that, what does that really mean? So this is an interesting one. Then I've seen a lot of people saying that this is something that just happened. A lot of people saying that this is something that, was rolled out months ago. So I think it's just, how Facebook has that stupid button that's like, have you fact checked this before you share it? Right. I honestly feel like this is a little bit of that. You want to be careful sharing these things because these are very like sensationalized topics right now.
Yeah.
I don't think
I'm looking at an email I just got from one of my lenders just so I could at least get some kind of info for us.
Well, I mean, so Washington Post, this is the Washington Post article that I was reading this morning, says, and again, not opinion, I'm reading from Washington Post. They were Washington Times, the first news outlet to report on this. And the article says, if you have a good credit and are looking to buy a home, you may be required more to subsidize other home buyers who have bad credit thanks to a new rule from the Biden administration. Starting May 1st, a new federal rule will force homebuyers with good credit scores to pay higher mortgage rates and fees to subsidize those with riskier credit ratings who are also buying houses. The FHFA, so the Federal Housing Finance Agency's push for affordable housing has led to the introduction of loan level price adjustments that will be enacted by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, affecting mortgages originating at private banks across the United States. Home buyers with credit scores of 680 or higher will pay around $40 per month on a $400,000 home loan. Home buyers who make down payments of 15 to 20% will face the largest fees. The new fees will only apply to Americans buying houses or refinancing after May 1st. And it says the new FHFA rule inverts the typical use of credit scores in free market economies. Traditionally, those with better credit scores would expect to pay less for debt. Financial institutions consider them less risky to lend to. So yeah, I mean, to me, that's what it sounds like. So
how does charging more for someone with higher credit subsidize somebody else's that has lower credit?
I mean, I
arbitrarily makes up this
away
rate.
from politics on this show as much as possible because it's not our business to be political either. So if someone with a different viewpoint has information to share, we would love to hear it, because we're not trying to be non-inclusive and we're not trying to insert our own opinions. We can only look at things through the lens. So if people have different opinions, like, please let us hear it. But I mean, I don't see how that's not a redistribution of wealth.
Right.
We'll just use it at that term instead of other terms that people call it.
Typically in the past, instead of using it the way that they're doing it now, haven't we just had like grants and that kind of stuff previously? So I wonder why now they're trying it this way. Do you think it's because like an interest rate reduction is that much more significant now than it used to be?
Yes. And I also think that it's maybe because we don't have any money as a country. I mean, we are still, inflation is so high and our interest rates are, so high because we're still to burn off basically all that like COVID money that we put out there into the world. And so I don't know that we're solvent enough financially as a country right now to be giving people grants or, tax cuts or anything like that. But I mean, in the past, and we've seen, and there's probably a lot of agents who don't even know this, but in the past, we've seen economies stall. We have absolutely seen the government stimulate them in some way, but it's always been in some type of, like you said, grant or tax break. So, during the big recession in 2008, we saw some on the state level, states offering $5,000 to $20,000 in grant money that didn't have to be paid back. Think of it kind of like as an assistance that didn't have to be paid back to people that would go out and buy a house, usually first-time home buyers. We also did see tax credits, kind of like you would if you put solar on your house or you buy a Tesla or something like that. Here's a certificate for X amount of dollars, depending on what you bought, off your taxes. We've never seen any of this take from one and give to the other before.
Like a Robin Hood tax or something, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it does feel like it's hard to not feel that way. Again, it's very difficult, I think, for people to talk on this because it's going to upset people. Like this is super incendiary to me.
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely almost intentionally separating people. And I know I've seen a lot of people that are like, well, shit, I'm not going to pay my bills for 2 months and see if my credit score goes down. That seems like a bad choice.
A lot of that, I was talking to my mom over the weekend. My mom's pretty middle of the road politically. And, I think that, I think beyond it being political, I think it's just really affecting people right now because people are like in fear and scarcity around finances, period. Yeah. Like in a way that we haven't seen in a while. Everyone's worried about inflation. They're worried about all this stuff. And then it's like you just start kind of whacking at it more. And it's like, stop, But my mom, who's pretty middle of the road, was like, I don't understand. She was like, I'm not rich. So it's not take from the rich to the poor necessarily, but she's like, I don't have money. I didn't grow up with money, but the one thing that I do have is my credit, and I worked extremely hard to have it be very good credit. And so to be finger quotes penalized for that is awful. And I'm not sure what other response. I mean, I'm sure that there are people that would be like, okay, we just read on a $400,000 loan, it's $40 a month.
Right.
That's it. And I'm sure that, of course, people will say, as you slide up in purchase price, maybe the person that, listen, guys, I'm terrible at math, so don't quote me here, but maybe the guy at that scale at $1 million house purchase is paying $100 a month. Maybe he deserves to because he's in $1 million house and this person is in a $400,000 house. But it all is the first time that we've ever seen it like across the board. We've, the guy in the $400,000 house, the $200,000 house, the $100,000 house, even if they have phenomenal credit and they're in like the lower tier, they're still paying this, versus usually it's like, if you make X amount of dollars a year, if you're buying X, like California just ended an absolutely insane, what they're calling the mansion tax, which is caused all kinds of chaos in Q1 of this year, where if your house was above a certain, I think it's above $10 million, you paid a hefty tax. And then as it went up in price, the tax got bigger from there. But this isn't really that. Like, this is still saying the guy who's buying the cheap house is paying it just as much as the guy who's buying the big house, as long as they're solid.
It's not on the purchase price. It's on the credit score, which I think that the theory is different than the application, like how it was supposed to, like who it was supposed to help versus who it's helping, I think are different. The same thing with like, having it be more expensive to buy a second home. It's not really affecting who you think it's going to affect. Like the rich people are not using a mortgage to buy their second home. They're just paying cash. So they don't care. But I think that's kind of what's going on here. I think it's, whoever came up with it probably had better intentions than how it's actually going to come out, and who it's going to affect adversely. So
I'm just not understanding why. And again, I think it goes back to what we said a minute ago about the country not being financially solvent enough to give people money out of the country coffers. But I'm just not understanding why you wouldn't say for these people, the Fed is in control of the freaking rates.
Right. That's
what. So why wouldn't you just say the Fed reduces the rates for these big people? That's what I don't get.
But instead, like, because it's I don't want to say it's arbitrary, because it kind of is. But it's not like you're like making these people pay for it. You're just giving these people a discount. So why not just call it that? Why does it have to be like? It's like they're forcing it to be some kind of political thing. I don't know.
What I don't understand about that is I feel like that doesn't look good for them politically, though. So that's the thing that I find kind of confusing, is like, usually, and this is not meant to be political. This is a statistical fact that we've talked a bunch about on the show. Usually before an election, you see whatever party is in office, doesn't matter who it is, make a move to stimulate the economy and the housing market, because, about a quarter to a couple months before, because it makes them look like everything is sunshine and roses, right?
It's right. Oh, we forgot about all the other shit that we just done. But now good.
Yeah, to give the person being reelected, a boon. But like, we're not there at the election time, and this one I feel like reflects negatively. So I am confused about.
I would love for them to roll out like here's why we did it. And here's what we were thinking it was going to do. So at least we understand.
And this is like, this is like tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff, which is not my nature. Like, I'm not that person that listens to that kind of stuff. But there was a part of me in the behind where I was thinking like, maybe they were just like, okay, we raised the rates and it didn't slow things down quite as much as we thought it would. And so we've still got to burn off all this money. But if we raise the rates higher, then everyone's going to hate this administration. So why don't we just like fuck with them by pushing this other button that maybe will piss people off enough that they'll stop buying houses, and that will slow down further. Or maybe maybe it'll bring pricing down, because maybe all the upper tier people will be like, well, I don't want to buy now because I'm not paying that 1%. I don't know. I mean, I think
it's like our bag tax now. Like people are just going to not buy just because they're pissed off about it.
I feel like
buying that 10-cent bag because fuck that.
I feel like this is a very odd move. And I feel like it did not seem like a good idea to me. I think that there are, you know, in the past, again, when we've seen these incentives and these things to help people, it has never been based on credit. That's the guidelines for, and when we talk about Fannie and Freddie, that's your FHA loans, which, by the way, and when I was reading that, I'm curious to know doesn't affect VA, because it didn't say VA.
I don't know who's going to affect. That's why one of the questions I was going to ask a lender is if it's
so Fannie and Freddie affects,
or conventional or VA, or what is it?
Well, Fannie and Freddie is conventional and FHA. So this affects conventional and FHA buyers. Those are government-backed loans. We've always had, you know, rules, like a bigger book on guidelines for those loans. You have to put X amount of money down. You have to have X credit score, right? I mean, don't quote me, but usually with FHA, I think you can go down to like 580, and conventional is usually around a 620 kind of credit score. So there's always been guidelines for this, right? And it's never affected the lending guide for it. It's been like, if you can qualify to meet the lending guidelines, then we will give you X, like a tax credit or a rate cut or whatever we just talked about, right? But it's never affected the guidelines before. So I have seen a whole bunch of people also going, wait a minute, like, is this just going to be another big short where we're financially incentivizing a bunch of who aren't ready to own homes to go out there and buy them? Then we're going to see a foreclosure crisis happen again. I mean, this one is weird.
There's a reason why lower credit scores have been traditionally charged more for interest rate. It's because they're a higher risk. And so I'm thinking that what's going to happen is ultimately the investor that's buying the loan is going to be like, no, we're not taking that risk on at this price. We're not going to make any money. So I think that's what's going to happen. Like, technically there's no minimum VA credit score. However, the investors that buy them are saying, you know, typically the lowest they'll take is 600 or 580, depending on the lender. But I think this is one of those things where, like, they can't force the investors that are buying these loans to accept that, right? So
you're so right. I mean, it's oh, sorry, I pulled up an article and it's playing a video on my phone or on my computer. So no, you're absolutely correct. I think that's what's crazy is, like, when you look at loan structure types, right? So VA is a very different animal. Angela can talk more about VA, but with FHA and conventional, FHA has always been basically a first-time home buyers program. It is a government-backed loan. They have to meet a criteria for credit, for income, for all those normal things that you would use to qualify. It's not the easiest loan in the whole world to get. And it comes with PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, which basically is something that the buyers pay per month to fill in the gap between a tiny little down payment and what someone puts down on the conventional side to bring the risk down for a lender, right? Because if that buyer forecloses on that house and they only put 3.5% down, by the time that the lender goes in, does the foreclosure process, the attorney, the evictions, all the things, they're probably upside down, if not extremely close to it, right, on their investment, which was buying that loan and servicing that loan. And so PMI is almost like a punishment, kind of, or a benefit that allows you to get a loan, however you think about it, that people with less money down pay every month to ensure that if something happens, there's this whole extra like cushion that the bank has there. When you do a conventional loan and you put 20% down, you don't have PMI because you've proven to the bank and to those lending institutions that you've got enough skin in the game that if something happens, right, they've got that they can go back after, right? It's like the same thing as, think of like on your contracts, and I know they're different across the country, but the buyer that's like, I only have $100 for earnest money,
Right.
Look
Versus
very
10,000.
different to your seller than the buyer who's like, I have $100,000 for earnest money, right?
But this is, I think, supposed to make it so that they're treated the same, but we all know they're not the same. And so I
don't know
feel
what
like
this is. Like, that's what's so confusing, is that this basically, I don't know, it punishes
people for having good credit and working their ass off to pay their bills on time.
it's leveling, the risk in backwards, I
Yeah.
feel. And it is the first time that we've ever seen it come from person to person. And I think that's the big deal.
I think what people forget is the amount of risk that these lenders take by loaning you this money. They're basically gambling. And so what this looks like to me is that we're asking them to just accept the fact that they're gambling with a smaller amount of security. And they're supposed to treat it like it's one with a lot of security. Like what it takes for somebody to save 10% down or 20% down is massive discipline and hard work. And to get your credit score up is ridiculously hard. So why not change the credit process if that's what you want to do and make it an even playing field? I don't understand what the motivating factor is. And I think that if you dug deep enough, that it would not only become political, but worse.
I mean, and it's very interesting. I will say that this is one of the first times that I've done a lot of research. And again, if we have lenders out there watching or people with different perspectives who want to jump in on this, because it is such a sensitive issue, shoot us something in the chat. We'd love to have you jump on and talk with us about this. But this is the first time that I've ever seen an issue that I feel like everyone is upset about. So if you go read across, all the news sources, regardless of which way you feel like they lean, people are really upset about this. So that's why I said not conspiracy theory, but my brain was like, wait a minute, is this maybe just another screw to nail in to piss people off, to nail the market down a little bit more? I mean, I'm just not understanding.
I think that's because we don't understand what the motivation is. Like there just wasn't enough information that was sent, like it was just enough to make it, kind of a conflict. Like there wasn't enough.
Too, that, so there were people, usually the lenders, who were commenting in people's posts about this the last couple of days saying, we've known about this forever. Well, we haven't known about this.
Right, we haven't.
So agents haven't known about this forever, and clearly the public has not known about this forever. And when it takes effect in 5 days, this is something that we could have used to stimulate the economy. This is something where we could have said, you want to purchase before this happens. If you're in that range where it could end up affecting you, I think it's a double whammy when it rolls out or gets max attention with no time for people to even understand what it is. A lot of people are calling it the upside down mortgage policy, is what new federal housing rule will make reliable borrowers subsidize risky loans. Why do we want to do risky loans again? We
haven't learned our lesson. It's like stop touching the hot stove.
Right. I don't know.
It could result in what it did before, like when you cause that much turmoil and you have people that are not quite ready to buying homes, it ends in foreclosure, short sales. Not good. So,
I mean,
I don't know.
The interesting thing, and again, because I think that this rolled out so quickly, is that it's tough to get a gauge on how the average consumer feels about it. From what I'm seeing, they're very angry. But
yeah, I think it's because there's not enough information out there. We don't know why it's happening.
But okay, so let's say that you were buying a $400,000 house. Would you not buy it because it was an extra $40 a month because of a credit tax, basically.
If I'm in that position, I'm asking the seller to subsidize that for me. I'm asking for a credit
Never even thought about that.
because it's not my fault that my credit score is so good that I'm less of a risk.
I know. So now when we're qualifying buyers as the listing side, we're supposed to go like to the lender, what is their credit score? And do we have to worry about the fact that they're going to bail when they find out that their credit score is good, that it's going to cost them money?
And like, I wonder what it's going to cost, like how much the difference is. If it's like a super negligible amount, like an eighth, like a 0.8.
So everything that I've said is about at a $400,000 price point, about $40 a month. At $1 million price point, upwards of between $100 to $200 a month. So I mean, it's the thing that's really funny too is like when I started in this business, $1 million was like $1 million. Like that was so much freaking money. And now in my area, in the Denver metro area, our average sales price is above $700,000. Our luxury market used to start at $500,000, right? So $1 million isn't that much where I learn. It's not that much in a lot of places in the country anymore, just because of rising prices. So at this point in time, I do think that this affects more people than it used to because prices are so high.
Well, I think down here, we do have a lot of houses at 400, but most of the time the people buying them are in our market, military, and on $400,000, like that's quite a mortgage, and an extra $40 if their credit's good. Like, I don't know that people are going to do it. I think they're just going to end up renting. That's my concern. I mean, at $400,000, I want to say the payment is like $2,500, $2,600.
Well, and then what is this going to do to debt to income ratios? So like another thing too is that if you're adding like a whole extra 1% in there somewhere, still not sure where it goes, putting it in there, then it could throw off people's DTI and then it could make them not qualify. Like people sometimes are razor thin on that. So one of the problems when you have an economy like this right now isn't even that the rates are so high. It's also the just pure availability of credit, that it's so damn hard to get a loan. No, we don't want to stick to 2008 days where you could do interest only and all this weird stuff that caused legitimate problems. But you can't make it so hard to get a loan that no one can purchase. And this is just another thing that adds problems.
I wonder why they didn't do it like this. Like, instead of the way that they're currently rolling it out, why not say it's a sliding scale of how much of a credit we're willing to give you, some kind of a government credit or a grant or whatever. For credit scores of X, it will be this. For credit scores over X, it will be this. And it should be going up as you get higher. Like, why is it going down? Like, I don't understand. Like,
it's the first time where we've seen it backwards. It's never been backwards, because when we did give tax incentives and grants like you're talking about, you still had to meet. They were for first-time homebuyers, because those are the people who don't have the money. So we were stimulating the housing market and the economy by saying, here's the money, but we were never saying like, bring us your shit credit score and we shall give you extra money.
No, in fact, it was like your credit score had to be 660, I think, to be able to qualify for the grant. But like, why not say that you can use this grant for anything? You can either use it for down payment assistance, you can use it for credit or for rate reduction, prepaids, closing costs, whatever the hell you want. It's up to you. Like, why did they purposefully do it like this? I don't understand it. So I'm hoping that somebody can explain it to me.
I think it's a really motivation behind it is really hard. And then, like I said, I think it's one of the first issues I've seen in a very long time. That's almost like you negging people by accident, because everyone's upset about it and no one is understanding the motivation behind it. So,
like, where does it come from? Like, where's the root of it? Like, who comes up with this shit? Like, I don't feel like Joe Biden sitting in his office like, oh, this will fucking piss him off. Like, it's somebody else that worked for him. Like, I don't know who it is.
Oh, that's a whole other conversation. I definitely don't think that he thinks about that. He's like, this is why I'm not going to Prince Charles's coronation as the first president in like the history of the United States who's never gone to our allies coronation because I got to sit home and redistribute.
Tax thing over here. We got a credit thing working.
But I don't think it came from HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development. I don't even know that it came from the Fed. Of course, the news will always put Biden's name attached to it because that's, just the way it goes. But I'm not sure. I will try to look that up. But I do think motivation wise, I think it's just, can you imagine the loan officers having to have these conversations with people? Like, that blows my mind. Imagine, so one of my very best friends in the world is a very, very, very good lender. And they do a ton of business all across the United States. And I keep trying to get him on the show and he's like terrified he won't come on, which is hilarious because he's so smart. But one of the smartest financial people I've ever met in my life. So if anyone's there, put a thing in the chat so we can try to get him on next. But we were talking the other day about the fact that it's just like everyone's going after the housing market so hard. And why is that? And the fact that it's really flip-flopped the tougher position to be in because the last couple of years it was very difficult the compression financially on income. Real estate business was on the agents, right? You were seeing a ton of agents discounting. You were seeing buyers asking agents to give them commission or, like this agent said they'd give me this rebate. You're not really doing anything because it's so easy to buy and sell right now. Why don't you give me some of your commission? That kind of stuff. That has completely flip-flopped. And now you're seeing it on the lending side because now like lenders, there are lenders that are literally writing loans for free all over the place right now, or they're writing them for a couple $100. And you've got, your veteran seasoned loan officers who are not doing that. And these new kids that come in, they only need to make a little salary. And so they're just doing it for free basically. And so now the compression side is so hard. Imagine having to add this on top of it. Imagine having to upfront say to the buyer when they look at like their rate sheet, well, what is this? Oh, well, that's a tax because you have good credit.
Yeah. I'd be shocked if they have it like displayed like that. I assume it would just be, here's what your rate is based on your credit score. I was talking to a lender last night about this exact thing, about how he's losing so much money because his rates are so much higher. And so he's subsidizing them with his commission and buying it down basically so that it's whatever the par rate is with other lenders. But I think there's a big issue within the lending industry. Like there are certain lenders that their rates are just not competitive and they have to do whatever it takes to get them down. And absolutely that's what's happening right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough on the lending side for sure, but I don't know, having that, again, not my personal political beliefs, but that doesn't matter. Like going back to that mansion tax in California, I could see how someone who sells 100 million, those are big trophy properties, right?
Yeah.
Someone who sells a $50 million property in Los Angeles or Beverly Hills or San Francisco, I could see how they would take a tax from that and redistribute it to funds that help other people that can't afford a 10, 20, 30, $50 million house. Like that in some way makes sense to me, but this credit thing is, like my mom said, I'm not rich. It's not like I'm rich. I'm actually retired living on a fixed income and I was never rich. I just worked really hard to have good credit. So it does feel like a penalty.
Yeah. Well, I think that mansion tax also, those people are going to be able to use that as a write-off, so they don't really care. So I don't think that's going to have the same effect that they think it's going to have either. So people that are buying, $30 million homes can probably use whatever write-offs they can get. So.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. I don't know. This is a weird one. So my question is, do you guys feel like this is going to just slow the market down further? Do you think it's going to piss off enough people that they're going to stop buying? The other thing that is funny that we were talking about this time in 2022, when the market was so crazy, was at that point, Biden was saying, I want to give some kind of something to first-time homebuyers. And we were like, please do not. Everyone. He was like, no, don't do that. Not because we don't want to help them, but because where are we going to put them? There's no houses. They're never going to get accepted in this market with an offer, so all you're doing is pushing all these buyers out into the market that honestly, at that point, are going to be able to buy. Is this going to do that again in the lower price points?
I wonder if it's to get rid of the stigma on CHFA. I wonder if that's why they're doing it.
Interesting.
Because anytime you see an offer come through that's instead of FHA, it's actually CHFA, realtors in general look at it as that's a higher risk. Because it kind of is.
Hi, Callie. Callie's watching, and Callie says, is it because people my age and younger don't have, on average, good credit, so they are encouraging younger buyers to buy because they could get what feels like a lower rate, so they rush out to buy? I think that's what I was kind of just wondering is, is this a move to push out the first-time home buyers? But if that happens, I don't think that they thought enough about, like, the market that we're in right now is like a razor's edge of balance, right? And if we still have so little inventory, we're 5 or 6 million housing units short across the country. If rates came down significantly, it would pop right back up to where it was previously. Yeah. So isn't this just going to make it harder for those people to go get houses again? We don't know, Kelly.
Maybe it's going to help them qualify for Morehouse, so they can be more competitive with offers.
And then Kelly also asked, this also affects new mortgages, right? Not existing. Yes. So this is anybody that applies for a new mortgage as of May 1st of this year going forward. But Kelly, let me ask you this. As a younger buyer, would saving $40-$50 a month because of this make you rush out to buy? And who's out there listening that's in the higher tier? Would losing $50 to $100 a month keep you from going out there to buy? I don't know. I mean, maybe they're trying to equalize pricing. I don't know.
That's all I can think of. That, it's basically the same net to the buyer with lower credit because they're going to have to pay a higher MI or something like that. There's a bump of some kind typically for them because they're higher risk at a lower credit score. So I wonder if this is to help equalize that out so that when they have to write an offer 30, 40 grand above asking price, it's kind of, making that gap smaller. Maybe. Don't know.
Oh, Callie, this is an interesting conversation. Okay, Callie says, never. I have no intentions of buying ever again. Anyways, I hear why that is. I do think that there's a large population of the younger generation that definitely feels like that for many different reasons, which is so interesting to me. But I do find it interesting that this is such a kind of big deal, but it doesn't make her feel like she should go out and buy. Does that make sense? Like it doesn't seem like it's going to do anything except for piss me off.
So Callie is Josh's cousin, by the way.
Oh,
and she's in Indiana.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what this does. I think it would be really nice if we were given intention behind things in general as they're rolled out, and that applies to anything that affects anything policy and economics wise. I think it's very unfortunate, and oh man, this is a soapbox I did not mean to step on, but I think it's very unfortunate that the average American does not understand how political policy and what you vote for and economics affect each other. And I do believe that part of that is done on purpose, because I think that if the average American were more informed about certain things, that they would probably vote differently. Whether that's one way or another, I'm not like saying, one way or another, but I do think that confusion allows people to make up their own hypotheses and ideas on things. And that's how things get so politically divided, right?
Well, especially because if we don't have enough information, people are going to make up their own conclusion to why it was done, and that's going to be gospel because they have nothing else to go by. So interpretation is always really dangerous, and I feel like that's what's going to happen here if they don't come out and say what it really is and why it is. I think it's just another reason to divide people right now, and it's not. That's how people are taking it, at least. So unless they come out and say, here's what we're trying to do and here's why we're doing it, I feel like that's what we're going to continue to do, because that's what people, for whatever reason, want right now, it seems like.
I can't find what this does that is good. I mean, listen, like, we want to help people. I made my whole career off of helping first-time homebuyers. I love first-time homebuyers. Angela works with them all the time. That's not what we're saying. This is not a typical United States of America thing to do it this way, by taking from one and giving it to the other. And again, that mansion tax in California, that makes sense to me, because you actually literally are taking from the rich and you're giving it to people who are not rich. But just because someone has a 750 credit score, that does not make them rich.
Right.
They're responsible. And yeah, Callie could be correct too. Yeah, I would add how old's Callie?
I would say she's, I don't know exactly, but I would say early 30s.
Early 30s. Okay. So yeah, I mean, people that are coming right out of college typically, don't have the greatest credit scores. People who are in their early 20s and just starting their careers typically don't have the greatest credit scores, right? So yeah, I mean, maybe those people do need help, but I guess Callie is right. There's a difference between irresponsible with your credit and just you don't have like a robust enough credit file. Like if you don't have seasoned credit line where you've had a Wells Fargo credit card and a Best Buy credit card open for 15 years that brings your score up to the 700s or 800s. Yeah, I mean, she's right. I guess it doesn't necessarily mean that you're irresponsible. It could just mean that you're new. So maybe that's what they're trying to do.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think it's this is a hot button for sure. Callie says they built their home in 2017. They're on land. They don't have plans to go anywhere. She does know a lot of people who are looking to buy. Houses are $250,000 plus, and they're one of the poorest counties in the state. So they're worried about people foreclosing.
Yeah. Which I think is what it's going to be. That's going to be the risk is, oh shit, now we gave them a discount of some kind and now it's backfiring.
You should give people who are qualified and who have proven that they're qualified a chance to own a home. Homeownership is the American dream, period. And we are, by the way, one of the only countries in the freaking world who does not help people. Like, go buy a house in Canada, you get money, right? Like, we're one of the only countries in the world that doesn't incentivize or help our people to own property in the country that they are citizens in. But I'm just not sure that you do it in this way. But, I mean, it's just, the more that I think about it, I guess I can see why they did it, because pulling from tax money, pulling from ours as a country, whatever, like that is a deficit. It takes money out. This only even works if you have a high credit score buyer and a low credit score buyer.
Right.
So there's like nothing on the table unless you got a bunch of people buying who have high credit scores to give to the low credit score people. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like the risk.
I wonder if it's not just for first-time home buyers. I wonder if it's for all buyers.
Everyone.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how this one plays out. Hopefully this week we'll get a little bit more clarity on what it actually is and what, if any, intention is behind it, what thought went into it, if any.
Yeah.
And I try to figure out what the message actually is.
Next week we'll get a really solid lender, financial advisor on here to talk about it, because we certainly are not that people. But I think Angela started out by saying this: be very careful what you're saying about this out there until you have more information.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to alienate everyone under 7 or 650 credits. So.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean,
Who knows who those people are?
the funny thing, I don't actually turn on the news very often because I had to like detox from it because it makes me have a panic attack. But, so I usually am triggered. I'm not saying I get my news from like Yahoo on Facebook, idiot on Facebook who's like posting shit. I'm saying I'm usually triggered that something is happening by what people are talking about. And then I go to like the news sources and look it up. So I sometimes do live in a little bit of a bubble because so much of my sphere is real estate people. So like, of course they're talking about stuff that affects real estate people, but is this on the news all day long? I mean, if you Google it, there's a billion different news articles, but is this on like Fox, CNN, and MSNBC right now?
No, which is why I'm confused here. So if there was this awesome thing that they wanted to get out, it would be out. So why isn't it?
I really am not understanding this one. So I do feel like we are going to need to.
I think we're going to need like two different sides of the spectrum politically that are both lenders that can give us guidance on what they feel like this is about.
That's a great idea, actually. Why don't we do that? We can have a good old red-blue political debate here on the Homegirls channel, and we'll just shut our mouths and let them fight with each other. Yeah, I think the point is like it's very difficult to get solid information on this right now. The unfortunate thing is it rolls out in like 5 days, and so that super sucks. But just be careful what you're sharing because I do think this is politically chat. A lot of what you're grabbing is through the lens of someone's feelings about it.
Yeah, be really careful with what you're sharing from the bigger pages like Lab Coats and everything, because a lot of these posts are not being made by admins that are very knowledgeable. They're being made by Joe Random Realtor from all over the place that they don't know the answer. If we don't know, they don't know. No offense. Like we would have seen it by now, and we don't know.
Yeah, and I think that is probably purposeful that it wasn't like the bell wasn't rung on it right until later. But
come up with a good marketing plan for it.
Yes. Yeah. So we will hunt down the right people that can give you guys the right information. And until then, maybe just continue to look for yourselves and send us stuff, share it with us. Like we love to hear people's viewpoints on this stuff. We only have the viewpoint that we have unless you guys share with us. So let us know what you guys think about it. You know what I really want to hear the most is what the consumer thinks about this. Let us know what your clients say about this. That's what I want
to know where they're finding it out. Like I will probably message Callie after this and ask her where she found out about this. If it wasn't our show, where it was, because she's not a lender or a realtor. She's a nurse.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I am wondering as well. If it's not on, like, I'm going to go sit and turn on the news for the rest of the day. But I mean, I think this one will spread like wildfire. I do. And I think that's why you have to be really careful sharing things like this right now. Like Angela said, in the absence of like actual fact, people just fill in the space with whatever they make up. So you could be very inadvertently, like accidentally
violating fair housing laws, violating all kinds of stuff.
People, well, and actually I did see someone, that's one of the questions.
Yeah, like, is this a fair housing?
I heard someone say that they felt, a lender say that they felt like that was a real close fair housing line. I don't know, but I think that you could accidentally be causing people to not jump in the market and buy right now because they're going to be like, no, screw this politically. Or they're going to be like, oh, 1%, that's a lot of money. You know, you've just got to be careful, not only so you don't look like an asshole, but so you don't cause people to make bad decisions.
Right. And also pay your bills on time. Like if you're not paying bills on time, it's not just affecting your credit. It's going to affect whether or not you qualify for the loan. It's not about just the credit score. There's a lot of other things that go into it. And especially if it's close to the time that you're looking to buy, that could make a massive issue for you that you're not expecting or anticipating.
Yeah, I agree. So let's just be careful. We'll get more information. But yeah, in the meantime, I'd love to hear if you guys are having conversations with clients about this, what they think, because I'm curious to see if it's going to push the market one way or another.
Yeah. Or which markets it will push one way or another.
Well, I guess it's great for the new buyers.
Well, I wonder if there are certain markets where people will be affected more than others. You know what I mean?
I
Or like
would
what would cause that?
I would think so, like a place where Callie lives, probably. Where I'm going to stop right there because I can't see where they think that can affect fair housing. So I do think that, yes, there are markets where, and that is a fact. You can pull up, if you don't know this, as an agent or a consumer, you can pull up a chart of average credit score by county, by across the whole country, statistically, historically, and you can look that up. So there probably are places where this will impact people more. And, I think the other thing that's happening this is like the biggest moving, if you think of the United States as a chessboard, it's the biggest moving around of the pieces that we've seen since like westward expansion in like the 1800s, when people were moving west to take land from it to start, lives for their families when they immigrated here, because now people are going back the other way. Like the Midwest is going to freaking explode because the prices are cheaper, right? And so everyone from these states are moving there. Politics are different. A lot of people are leaving blue states to go to red states. That's a fact. It has nothing to do with my politics. And now in those areas where income statistically, all those buyers might come out of the woodwork and start buying there. So you might see this like explosion in small town USA.
Yeah. Well, I think that at least for me and my family, we're right now trying to find what city, what state is it that we can buy our second home in that is going to be a place that we can get away if the shit goes down in Colorado more than it already has. So I think that you're going to start seeing that across the board. And it's going to be in weird places that you wouldn't expect. It's not just going to be Florida or Texas. I think it's going to be like Tennessee, like Kentucky.
It's already happening in Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, all those places that are great places to live that people are finding out about very fast. So I think it's going to shift the whole board. And especially because people can work so remotely now.
Yeah.
Why not live somewhere that's cheaper?
Yeah.
I feel like this was not on my bingo card for 2023. It's just another
I don't
thing.
want to play this bingo game anymore. This game sucks.
I know. What happens tomorrow? Like, I don't know. Now, do you think they're going to raise rates? Do you think that they'll now raise rates again and then be like, but we just gave you guys a discount from one to the other?
Look over here, not over here. I don't know. I think that honestly, they're probably going to keep the rates kind of where they are, because now it's like they've realized that people are still going to buy at this rate regardless. They're just buying in different price points. So I think
now everyone's going Q4. Q4 is the time that the rates are going to go down and everything's going to be magical and the market's going to be amazing. Okay, it was Q1, then it was Q2, then it was Q3. Now it's going to be like Q4 of 2096. Right. So I think the only thing you can do right now is hang on for a bumpy ride, because
I think that I'm very glad that no one that I surround myself with, none of my agents have given out the old, if you lock in now on your rate, you can refi in a few months and the rates are going to be better.
Be careful with that. We've been saying be careful with that for a long time. So, all right, guys, we promise that we will get someone who's far smarter than us, money and economics wise, to come in and explain this. So if you're watching and you have questions about it, please bring next week, because that will be a great time to sit down and learn about this. So
and if you're a lender or a financial in the financial realm and you want to give us some insight, we would love to have you on next week. So it might just be like one of those things where we have a couple of different people on just to give different insights on different areas and how it's going to affect people.
All right. We love you guys. Sorry that we don't have all the answers, but we will go find them. This one caught us by surprise too. Did not see this coming. So we will see you guys next Tuesday, 10 a.m.
Angela and Lindsay would love to receive your real estate referrals in Colorado. Connect with the Homegirls on social media at The Real Homegirls